Good afternoon and welcome to today's lunch break with the Rabbi. Today, we're going to combine the two about fascinating facts and also discuss about this week's Torah reading. This week we read about Avraham. Avraham is an individual who is the first to discover the concept of monotheism and teach the world about the greatness of God. He goes through a tumultuous life, as we're soon going to talk about. And we're going to find a few unique instances that happened in his life. But first, let me begin with a story about a couple in 1974, about to get married, bride and groom getting ready for their wedding, and they decided, they lived in Israel, to go visit some of the Kabbalists to receive a blessing in honor of their wedding. They visited with this one Kabbalist, and he looks at them and he says, "Your names don't match. Your names are symbolic of something not so good in your life that will happen. I don't see the two of you together." The couple was devastated. What are they going to do? They were planning to get married very soon. A few weeks later, they were planning to visit America. This is back in 1974. Where the Rabbi was having private audiences with individuals. And they asked for an audience with the Rebbe. And when they came into the Rebbe, they told the Rebbe what happened. And the Rebbe looks at them and he says, "Listen here. The wife, the Kala, the bride, she had two names. The husband had one name. The Rebbe said to add a name to the groom, to the chassan, to the husband. And like this, both of them will have two names and everything will work out." And thank God it all did. What's this about changing names? Jewish people, we believe in blessing, in luck. We believe that we carry a certain type of influence. But what is it about names? In this week's Torah reading, Abraham is about 90 years old. 99, almost 100 years old. Sarah's 90 years old. They haven't had any children. What does God say? Come along and says, Avram can't have children. But if I add a hey, Avraham, he can have a child. Sarai can't have a child, but I'll change her name to Sarah and she'll have a child. All of a sudden, the problem's solved. They get a new name change. What is it which seemingly a name transforms and transcends any of the issues that the person may have had? In this week's Torah reading, when Abraham's standing in front of God, and God tells him you're going to have a child who's going to be the future of the Jewish people, Abraham can't understand or fathom how such a thing can happen. Until God comes along and it tells him, leave your astrology behind. Leave that place of where you come from, your preconceived notions behind. I am calling you a different name. You are now a different individual. Yes, in your astrology, you've seen Avram and Sarai can't have a child, but Avraham and Sarah can definitely have a child. New names, new identities, new people. In fact, in Jewish law, it's brought in the Talmud and then brought in Jewish law that a person who is not feeling well, God forbid, or feels like a terrible decree has been upon them, they should change their name. And for that reason, we have, if you're looking back of the Psalms, there's a whole prayer for a person who's not well, that they can change their name. But the question is, why is it that something seemingly technical, a name, and because of that, the whole environment of the person changes? The luck, the blessing changes for the individual. What is it? We know that many people are called by many different things. Today in society, people have secular names as well. And many times we are encouraged that we shouldn't use those secular names, but use our Hebrew names, our Jewish names. Because our Jewish names is what defines our essence, is what hits our core. There are many instances where people who didn't have Jewish names, they would come to the Rebbe and the Rebbe would ask them what their Hebrew name was or their English or secular name was. And one person was Brian. The Rebbe told him to be Baruch. or whatever it was, would find some type of relationship to their name they're called in the English, or if it's Italian or whatever it was, and then transform it and convert it into a Hebrew name that they should be called by their Hebrew name. But what is it? What is the mystical reason? What is the concept behind Hebrew names? What's so unique about Hebrew names? What's so unique about our name that our name changes who we are? If you look at Abraham and Sarah in their life, it's something very interesting. They lived a life of happiness at first when they got married. They lived, yes, in a place where people were totally atheists or pagans, and they convinced, and they had a massive following of teaching people about Judaism, or at that time it was called monotheism, teaching people about God. They were popular. Abraham became popular. Sarah became popular, to the extent that the Talmud tells us that when they left, there was droves of people that would follow them wherever they went. And all of a sudden, they're about 70, 75 years in their life. Things are seemingly going good for them. They're popular. People know them. They're reaching their objective. But all of a sudden, God comes along and says, guess what? Time for you to move on. Leave your home. Lech lecha. Time for you to leave. And if we look in this week's Torah reading and next week's Torah reading, there are 10 challenges that Abraham is given. Maimonides, when he quantifies the different challenges that Abraham was given, if we look just in the first few verses of this week's Torah reading, leaving his parents' home, going to a place of hunger, going down to Egypt, then Sarah being taken by Pharaoh, then Hagar marrying and having a child instead of Sarah, all the different challenges that they had. But if you look at the beginning, God tells Abraham, leave your parents' home and come to the land of Israel. What does he do? He follows instructions, but when he comes to the land of Israel, there's a famine, there's a hunger. What's he supposed to do? He tries to go have another woman. He goes down to Egypt. His wife gets taken away. Finally gets his wife back, takes another woman. That woman has a child. That child is making problems. He had to send that child away. Wherever he goes, all of a sudden, there's problems coming up. There's challenges along the way. What happened here? And only later on we find out, after all these challenges, God comes along to them and says, 1 second, you want a solution to all these challenges? Here, change your name. Avram becomes Avram, Sarai becomes Sarah. Boom, they have a child, and they live happily ever after. No more challenges. What is it in this changing of the name? What does the name have unique in it? That it has that quality that's responsive to that individual. But let's take a step further. What is it in the challenges that God gave Abraham that he demanded that he go through all these challenges? What was it in these challenges that God wanted from him? Hasidism explains that the concept of a challenge is there to make us stronger. Meaning that God doesn't give us a challenge we can't tolerate, that we can't overcome. And the very fact that we were given this challenge is because we have the capacity and capability to be able to overcome it. But even further, the word in Hebrew for challenge, nisayon, the root word is nes, which means miracle. In every challenge, there lies a miracle. In every challenge, there's an ability to overcome it, but not only overcome it, but to become stronger because of it and create miraculous events because of it as well. This is exactly what a challenge is all about, when God gave Abraham a challenge. And when God gives every single one of us a challenge. What God is telling us is, I'm putting you in a certain situation because I know, A, you can overcome it, and B, you'll become stronger because of it. Here is the challenge that God gave Abraham and Sarah. He gave them the challenge of what they were able to overcome. They didn't have children. They were wandering from place to place. What would that mean for them? But at the same time, God said, I'm giving you this, A, because I know you guys are going to come out better on the other end, but you're going to create miraculous events because of it. This was the greatness of it. And here we go back to the changing of our name. What's the purpose of changing a name? Why does changing the name or adding the name make such a difference? And there are different opinions. Well, you know, automatically when somebody's called Your Honor, or Rabbi, or Doctor, or Mr., Esquire, whatever title you give a person, automatically they have to live up to that certain standard of that title that they're given. So the name automatically invites within the individual a certain awakening and inspiration that they should change, that they should look into themselves and see what they can do to repent or to become a better person. It invokes within the individual an inspiration to stand up to the challenge. But what it also does is the actual changing of the name changes the person, changes the inspiration, changes the blessings that come to this person. Then now this person is no longer confined to who they previously were. Changing the name automatically opens a new sphere for them, which both of these reasons give the same thing. This individual now becomes a new person. This is exactly when we talk about the idea that in Judaism we look at a person and the person's name tells you about the individual. There's an interesting episode the Talmud talks about. There was once 3 scholars, Talmudic scholars, traveling, and they had to stay in a hotel for the night. And they came and they had large sums of money with them. And they approached the hotel manager and they asked him if he can save their money for them for the next morning, that it should be in a safe place. Rabbi Meir at the time asked the hotel manager for his name. And the hotel manager asked her, his name is Kidur. Rabbi Meir said, that name doesn't sound too good to me. That sounds like a little bit of a negative connotation. I'm not keeping my money with him. And Rabbi Meir went and put his money under his pillow. The next morning, the other 2 rabbis come to the hotel manager and they ask him for the money back. And the hotel manager says, you never gave me money. What are you talking about? And he stole their money. So they turned to Rabbi Meir and they asked Rabbi Meir, how did you know that he was a thief? Well, Rabbi Meir said, he told me his name is Kidur. Kidur is the abbreviation of a verse that's brought in Deuteronomy that they're not trusted. And therefore I didn't trust him. According to Judaism, a person's name is not just merely identification. A person's name is the essence of who he is. And therefore, if I change my essence, I change myself, I now am a new person who now reaches a greater heights and is now ability to have blessing. The whole idea, the whole concept of changing the name is that the identity, the inner psyche of the individual changes. And therefore, all the events in their life as well will change with it. And therefore, when we talk about, for example, we read a few weeks ago, where Adam brought all the different creations were brought in front of Adam and he gave them their name. What does it mean he gave them their name? He was able to say the inner psyche of every created being, and therefore he gave them the name. In fact, the word Adam itself. Why was Adam given the name Adam? Because he was Adam Elyon, he was compared to God. Why was Noach given the name Noach? Because he brought comfort to the world. Every single one of these names had a connotation and a reason and a purpose of why they were given. So the same too is also with us. Every single one of our names tells us who we are, especially our Jewish name. Tells us the essence of the person, the unique quality of who we are, what we can do, and how we approach things. It's not just a combination and a hodgepodge of letters or what somebody decided to give you. In fact, the Talmud explains that when parents give their children a name, it is with prophecy that they give the name. It's the only time they have prophecy. But every single letter symbolizes. The Aleph is for faith, love. Beis is for blessing. Every single letter symbolizes something great. So too it was with Abraham and Sarah, where Abraham was added a hey to his name. With that hey and the yud was taken away. The yud, which is a dot, a hey which sows plenty. She wasn't able to have a child, but now she had a child. In fact, we find even later on in history when Rachel wasn't able to have children, she took a maidservant, and she brought it to her husband and said, Bilhah is her name because she has 2 hays, a double blessing that will give me the ability to become pregnant. It wasn't just semantics. It wasn't just hocus pocus. It was because the name symbolizes on the individual's character that they are changing, that they are making a transformation into somebody else who they haven't been until now. Every single one of us has that ability. Every single time we're faced with a predicament, just like Abraham and Sarah had in their time. It's about changing our name, meaning changing our idea, changing our essence, changing our entity. Realizing that if God gave us this challenge, we can overcome it. We are not the same person before the challenge. We become new individuals, new qualities, because we have that miraculous event that comes in our life, gives us the ability to change and transform not only us, but the world around us. My friends, the challenge is all ours to be able to change the world, realize, to bring miraculous events and make this world an entire new place. Thank you for listening today and joining us with Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
It was about the third week.
Take care. All the best.
Battle where things really started to go downhill. She was.
Oops. Sorry about that. I don't know what came flying. But again, thank you very much. Take care. See you all tomorrow at, probably not at 1 p.m., a little bit later, right before Shabbos for a Shabbat message tomorrow. God bless you and have a great day.